Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, Kwahala Yahweh Bashem Yahshua Bashem Rakwakadash. Double honors to that apostles of Great Millstone that rule well. And peace and salutations to all the Akim out there on the highways and byways, noise in this world abroad, all around the country, all around the world, through the spirit and power of our Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahshua. Now, this is breaking news now. This is big. It reads headlines. This is from CNBC. It says UK formally leaves the European Union and begins Brexit transition period. And this is dated today, actually, Friday, January 31st, 2020. So it reads, let me just read the key points real quick. It says the UK has finally left the UN market, one of the biggest political and economic shifts in modern Europe. The Brexit begins about the end of a tremendous 3.5 years departure process. Brexit has caused turmoil in the UK's political establishment, economic and uncertainties and social division. You see division right there. And this goes back to the 10 toes, and we've been talking about this for years, from the head apostles on down. We've been talking about that there will be a division within NATO and the EU. And this is one of them. This is one of them, starting with the UK, the United Kingdom. This is big right here, because this goes back to the 10 toes that we've been talking about. It was partially strong and partially weakened. And let me just read on, get into this. So the UK finally left the EU on Friday evening after 47 years of membership, marking one of the biggest political and economic shifts in modern European history. Brexit brings about the end of a tremendous 3.5 year departure process that has caused turmoil in the UK, politically, establishments, and economic uncertainties, and the highest tensions between the UK and the EU. You see? So this goes back to the 10 toes that we've been talking about when the kingdom was partially strong and partially weakened. The departure on January 31st also marks the start of transitional period in which the UK remains a member of a single market and customs union and begins negotiations with the EU to strike a free trade deal during the transition period. The UK would not have voting rights and EU matters, but will still be bound by EU rules. Slovakia. The UK government has set an ambition and some say unavailable deadlines of the end of 2020 in which a deal must be reached, otherwise it will leave the single market with no deal and will not revert to World Trade Organization rules. Just jump around here real quick. So pretty much, this is big. The UK is not a part of the EU anymore. And this is going to just make a whole economic shift between NATO and the EU, because America is part of NATO and the EU, because they're now partners. But by them leaving, it's going to cause a tremendous economic shift, and you're going to see a lot of collapses happening between these countries, And let me just jump in the book of. So this is the book of Daniel's. Yeah, this is the book of Daniel, chapter 2, let me start at verse 33. And this is going into the feet right here. His legs of iron has parts, and his feet parts of iron and partly of clay. Verse 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image. Yeah, let me start at Salaki. Let me start at verse 39. And after these shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and a third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth, which was the Roman Empire. Verse 40. And the fourth kingdom, which shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and stubble all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, this is going into America and the EU, well, NATO and the EU, which America is part of that. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of the potter, clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but they shall be in it of a strength of iron. You see, the kingdom shall be divided. And this is going into, NATO and the EU. Because by the EU leaving, that plays a major part within NATO and the EU. By the United Kingdom leaving and the EU, NATO and the EU, is going to play a major kingdom in the economic system. But they shall be in it of the strength of irons, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Verse 42. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so shall the kingdom be partly strong and partly broken. You see, it's just going into America, going into NATO and the EU. You know what I mean? So it's going to be partly strong and partly broken. And right now we're seeing NATO and the EU leaving. You know what I mean? That means that it's probably broken, because EU is leaving due to their economic system, their economic turmoil that's going on in their country. So they don't want no parts of their kingdom or their nation or whatever their kingdom suffering an economic turmoil, which means they had enough of it. Such as Greece, Greece is over there. They're suffering an economic turmoil over there. It's like we've seen riots and all kind of, looting and everything going on. And such as France too. You see protesters in these EU countries, such as France, Greece, the Netherlands, all these other countries. You're seeing protesters breaking out and taking place in these countries. Pretty soon, you're already seeing protesters going on over there in the UK. So they're like, look, we don't want no parts of this, so we're leaving. And these countries is gonna only get worse. And this is This is what it means when it says that the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. You know? Because we're seeing these protests taking place in these other countries like France, Greece, and all these other countries. So this is prophecy coming to pass, And we've been warning that, these nations will end up leaving the EU. And ultimately, these other nations, they're going to end up following suit, such as France or Greece, They're going to end up following suit. They're going to end up leaving and exiting Brexit, NATO and the EU, So this also goes into the prophecy when the Lord said, if the kingdom be divided amongst himself, how shall the kingdom stand? But let me get that real quick. So this is Matthew's chapter 12, verse 26, and it reads, As Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then shall his kingdom stand? So this is what Yahushua is saying. How then shall his kingdom stand? If there's division amongst, NATO and the EU and, which is the European Union, if there's division amongst each other, how shall the kingdom stand? This is what Yahushua is saying. So pretty much, going back to the predictions of, there's going to be an economic crash in the year 2020, this might be the start of that economic crash by the EU, the United Kingdom leaving Brexit, leaving the EU, because you already got these protests that's already taking place in these EU countries such as, Greece and France, due to the economic, situation, due to the money system. So you're seeing these turmoils and all these stuff breaking loose. So this is prophecy coming to pass, and we've been warning about this, from the head apostles on down, that there will be division amongst NATO and the EU, that they'll start leaving the EU, which is the United Kingdom, that there will be division amongst these nations, going back to the situation with Greece, that you had that big protest and riots going on over there due to the economic system, So this is getting big. A lot of prophecies is coming to pass all at once, which Elder Apostle Tahar dubbed this year, the year of prophecy, the spirit of prophecy. And we're seeing these prophecies come to pass right before our very eyes, So we're in that time right now. There's a lot of things happening, and we're in the time of prophecy right now. And this is what we're speaking to the people. We're speaking to the people prophecy. This is prophecy coming to pass. And this is huge. So for all the naysayers that were talking trash, the scoffers, now the joke's on you now, because now prophecy is coming to pass. So with that, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua Ba'Shem Rakwakadash. Double honors to the head apostles of Great Millstone at Ruwell. Peace and salutation to the Yakim out there on the highways and byways. And with that, I want to say shalom.